go ahead and start off. We've got two past previous ordinances that I'd like to go ahead and address before we move on to the agenda for tonight. Both of these are Don Moffitt's. I'm gonna read these just by title only. Appropriation ordinance. Be it enacted by the fourth court of Marion County, Arkansas, and ordinance to be entitled an ordinance amending the annual operating budget for the office of the Marion County and Circuit Clerk, numbers and compensation ordinance 2023-149. Do I have a motion?
Yes.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second on the ordinance amending the annual operating budget for the office of the Marion County and the Circuit Clerk, numbers and compensation ordinance? Since we don't have a second, it will stay, for lack of my knowledge with all the Robert's Rules of Order wording, it will remain postponed. Second ordinance of previous business, be it enacted by the quorum court of Marion County, Arkansas, and ordinance to be entitled amendment to the annual operating budget and numbers and compensation ordinance 2024-61 for the calendar year of 2025 to appropriate funds from Fund 1007 Local Assistance of Tribal Consistency to 1007-0102 Recorder's Fund Media Conversion in the amount of $75,661.83. Do I have a motion?
Motion that.
Do I have a second? Following no second, we'll go ahead and postpone this ordinance for the time being.
All right, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, moving on to appropriation ordinance. Be it enacted by the quorum court of Marion County, Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled an ordinance amending the annual operating budget and numbers and compensation ordinance 2024-61 for calendar year 2025 for Marion County, Arkansas. Transfer unappropriated funds from 1005 Coronavirus Relief Fund for payment for repair low water slab on Marion County 3022 in Payette, Arkansas area project. Keep in mind, this project has already been started. May I have a motion?
Yes.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
May I? That low water slab was built 6 years ago, but it's been gutted out underneath. The concrete slab that actually you can see is very close to just collapsing. So the judge rebuilding that is different than just repairing it. As it stands right now, it can't be repaired. It just needs to be destroyed. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that road number is incorrect. It should be 3022, MC 3022. Instead of, anywhere it says 6022, it's 302.
Is this the one that you said we would be getting a percentage back?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you know what that percentage is?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We're going to go ahead and read the resolution of Marion County Quorum Court resolution. Would y'all like for me to read the whole reading? This involves the Oakland Promised Land Fire Protection District.
You don't need to on my part, no, sir.
Okay.
Okay, I should say resolution 2025.
2025,
Yes.
resolution number 2025. May I have a motion?
A motion.
Second,
I'll second it.
discussion?
Was this talked about last year? Or is this a brand new one? I'm sorry.
New one.
It's a new one, okay.
That particular fire department does have one every single time. They're probably the only consistent one we've got in the county.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on with the appropriation ordinance 2025 be enacted by the Quorum Court of the County of Marion, State of Arkansas, and ordinance to be entitled. Ordinance appropriating, transferring funds in the 2024 budget previously authorized in ordinance 2023-149 for the purpose of state mandated budget cleanup. Do I have a motion?
A motion.
Second,
I'll second it.
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
What was that one on?
It was on, there's some juvenile intake transfers.
Yes,
Clean,
okay.
it's a cleanup.
Yeah,
ordinance.
Clean that one,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that the one you're zeroing out now, or?
Yeah,
Zeroing out?
taking them out of the negative, and I have, I did, got it done at the end of the day. So I'm going to be re-reviewing this again tomorrow. We're gonna go through it because we have some line item transfers that we need to put into our system. And we just wanna make sure everything's good. So you may see a few changes, you may see none. But just to let you know, this is,
Karen, has this been let out to the county? Because I haven't got anything about cleanup yet.
no, I got this, I did yours too. I did every department, the whole county, even personal services. Yes, all the personal services, I did everything. So I've got that, and I'm doing more line item transfer, so there's not that much. So that should take care of it, but it's line item transfers that are multiple pages long, that we're reviewing.
All right, moving on to the next, excuse me, item of business, appropriation ordinance 2025, be it enacted by the Quorum Court of Marion County, Arkansas, and ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance to revise the annual compensation of county elected officials and amend ordinance 2024-61. The 2025 annual operating budget and numbers of compensation ordinance for Marion County, Arkansas. And I'll give her 1 minute to look at that.
Did you guys put a motion on the budget one? Like the budget ordinance that you just had?
We passed it.
Yeah,
I missed that part.
passed it to the budget.
Sorry.
It's a big job.
Everyone's done reviewing, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Can I get
I'll second.
discussion? I would like to know, it's my understanding that the, all of our elected officials have not had an increase in quite some time. It's my understanding, well over a decade, so just wanted to put that out there on the table to make everybody in the audience and the forum aware.
They did receive the 3% COLA, correct? Yes.
That, okay.
You know, for I hope that, everybody understands where I'm coming from, but I oppose this right now because of the people that we have working with us in our departments. And it's like Miss Moffett, Dawn Moffat's trying to get a raise for two of her people. You know, how can we give a county elected official a raise when we're not taking care of our people yet? I personally am against it. I mean, y'all do as you want, but it's until we get our own people raised up, it's, we need to do something different.
Class 2 counties, when you compare salaries with Class 2 counties, you gotta be a little careful there because classes are determined by population, not revenue. Many of us Class 2 counties are very poor counties. The elected officials, all their salaries all fall in the lower percentile of the averages of all Class 2 counties. Okay, in fact, we're the lowest paid elected officials in the state. With that said, I would support this ordinance at court after we consider raising the deputies to a salary that is at a point that we can retain deputies and recruit deputies. So at this moment, I cannot support this ordinance until we address the lower paid, highly skilled and highly dependent on employees like the deputy sheriffs. Thank you.
And there are deputies that have been here 2 or 3 years that are making substantially more than deputies that have been here 5, 6, 7 years, and that needs to be rectified.
As former payroll person for several years, I watched the elected officials give up their raises year after year after year in favor of giving raises to the employees. So I agree and I disagree. I did bring some copies of a cover page email on just the treasurer's salary, and we went from 2014 to 2022 at the same pay rate, which was $40,700. 2023, belatedly, they passed that same rate and belatedly came back and said, oops, this doesn't even meet the state mandated minimum. Let's boost them up a little bit. 2024 mandated minimum, 2025 mandated minimum. I think we're overdue. I did put together Class 2 salaries of all the deputies that I emailed to Justice Reed. And I'd be happy to email those to y'all too if you want to look at the deputy salaries across the Class 2 counties.
May I address that? The deputy study on Class 2 counties, the deputies fall primarily in about the second percentile over the average of the state Class 2s. The problem with that is we can't determine how we do business based on other Class 2 counties. We certainly can take that into consideration. But right now, we're sitting between two very rich counties, and Flippin actually pays their policemen more than we pay deputies. So retention gets to be difficult. When, 10 miles over, you can make $20 an hour and you're only making 17 here. So the issue, I would recommend that this elected official ordinance be considered at mid-year review so that we can see how comfortable we are with county general. 3 of these raises come out of county general, 3 come out of special funds. But at mid-year, we can see better, we can better understand, how healthy we are in terms of revenue and budget. We're certainly growing, and that's a good thing. And at one point or another, I think we can pass this. And at one point or another, I think we need to get the deputies up to $20 an hour. So, thank you.
I would challenge the second percentile. When I looked at the numbers, I thought I saw we're actually right in the average pay for class 2 counties for the deputies. The big problem is the job pool in the area and the higher pay rates that we're surrounded by.
Council, what's your recommendation as far as putting this on hold for a while?
How did you all come up with the idea to give all the county employees rank and file raises?
May I address it?
Sure.
You mean in the 24 court?
Yeah.
Oh,
For this budget year,
sir,
how much of a pay raise did the county employees get this year?
this year,
Yeah.
out of the 24, 161,
The 24,061, yeah.
yeah, everybody got a 3%.
Okay. So how much should the elected officials get?
Everybody got a 3%.
Oh, no. I'm talking about in this ordinance. In this ordinance, how much should elected officials get, including you all?
What's a percentage increase?
Yeah.
I do not know.
Okay. So as written, you all are putting yourselves in for an 18% raise. The county treasurer, county collector, and the county assessor are putting themselves in for a 15.5% raise. The circuit clerk and county clerk is putting herself in, according to this ordinance, a 14.9% raise. The sheriff is putting himself in for a 14.3% raise. The county judge is putting himself in for a 20.5% increase raise. That's your ordinance.
The question that becomes, how do you sell that to a deputy who got a 3% raise?
That's gonna be a question every time.
I'm sorry.
That will be a question every time.
Yeah. It
What
would
you're
be.
gonna get, normally for a COLA raise is 3.5%.
It would be.
Unless something happens, you're gonna get major manufacturing moving in and lots of saving tax base.
Since Mr. Russo's here, it might be a consideration. In the back of my mind, Mr. Russo, I remember a statute that a court can't raise their own salary during their term.
Correct.
So the court part of this, is there a court part of this? Yeah. Is that Article 3?
It's in there, but there's a difference between some of their pay and per diem. And the way this is worded for the justice of the peace on the per diem, that would take a little further flushing out research. Here's my point. There's no doubt across the board, county employees and elected officials are underpaid. You with me? I'm used to dealing with elected officials and their pay that's set statutorily in Missouri. At the local level, however, we have a salary commission that's made up of the elected officials. And they can elect as a body to take that full amount, or they can take a percentage. But this percentage is for everybody. So if they decide they're not going to take 100%, but they're going to take 90%, that 90% applies to all elected officials, okay? So I don't doubt that all of them need raises and there's differences in the percentages. But my recommendation is everybody needs to be treated the same. So I'm not saying that the elected officials should only get 3%. They got that. That was basically a mandated thing. What I am saying is if you're going to decide on a raise for an elected official, I would think that if you're going to give a 15.5% raise, everybody gets a 15.5% raise. We shouldn't have 20, 14, 14, 15, 15, 15. Granted, I understand the sheriff's job. I understand the county judge's job. I also understand all the various elected officials' jobs. They're different, but yet they have consequences to the county if it's not performed correctly. With that being said, there, especially for transparency in the public eye, I personally believe you need to have transparency and justification because I'm not going to be the only one who does the math. There's going to be others who do the math. there has to be a justification of why this percentage is that way. Does that make sense? So, believe me, I'm all for the elected officials getting raises. You all are gonna have to be consistent on that, because otherwise, how do you justify these different percentages? Am I wrong?
I would add to that, I'm sorry, that consistency is an employee county-wide issue. Now, you may not be able to give 15, 20% to the deputies or over at the solid waste, but you should be able to give a consistent raise.
I agree. I think elected officials are different though, because they've stepped into a role that not everybody has, not everybody can do. They put themselves out there to take on this job and take on that responsibility. That weighs more, okay? The county employees have gotten raises. The elected officials haven't got raises in how long? You see what I'm saying? So there's no doubt in my mind the elected officials are due. But I think you all need to come up with, and I think the elected officials as a group could have a meeting and try to determine a schedule that will be looked at that would be transparent, equitable, fair, because I do think for the jobs that our various elected officials do, they are underpaid. I know what they do. You know, I interface with every single one of them. And their job responsibilities are different. What they do is different. And I'm not saying they don't deserve it, but I think probably all the elected officials in this room would agree that if you're going to look at giving everybody a raise of this magnitude and that percentage level, and in the grand scheme of things, I mean, in my world, that's the raise they're getting is not much. But when you hear the percentages broke down that way, that's going to leave a bad taste in some of your constituents' mouth. They're going to understand that, okay? And that's where I think you need to put a little thought into fine-tuning these numbers. I'm for passing it. I just think you all need to fine-tune some numbers.
I would like to add one adjective to his list of adjectives, and that's affordability. I still recommend tabling it to midterm so that you can see the health of the overall budget. I think we're in good shape, and I'm in favor of raising the elected officials. I like the concept though of doing it in a percentagely consistent way. That may take some study. So my recommendation would be to table it to midterm. I guess mid-year is a better word. Midterm's pregnancy.
I have an issue with us making this decision when there's 9 court justices and there's 4 of us here making the decision for the other 5.
Well, it's gotta go to court.
Right. We can make a decision whether it does or not. Sure. You know, they have no say.
If I may, sight unseen, let's just say you approve this and your other fellow quorum court members go, wait a minute, we're going to give the county judge a 20% pay increase. What discussion are you going to have to explain that to the remaining justices of the peace?
But my point is they get a say in it.
Right.
At this point.
But do you think the other 5 would approve it?
I don't have a thought of it.
Well, and the reason I say that is I think a little more flushing out of these numbers and coming up with a way to explain it to the quorum court that would be palatable to the court, to the public. I think that's kind of imperative in order to get this passed and not have any grumbling from your constituents, the employees, the public. I think a lot of employees would agree their bosses need raises. I truly think that. But you're always going to have some that are going to be disgruntled. But I think with a little more work, you could put an across the board increase that would meet the criteria for a class 2 county to bump us up towards the middle, even top of the range. But at the same time, be able to explain it in a percentage term that everybody would understand. If that makes sense. It does.
What he's trying to tell you is table it.
That's what I was getting ready to say.
May I ask one more question? Did we get past the legality of Article 3? I don't remember that.
No, we did.
So do we strike Article 3?
No, you leave it because if you're gonna table it.
Well,
It's gonna have to be fixed no matter what.
okay.
In its present form, it's gonna have to be fixed.
With tabling it, that's gonna give us some more time to do some research. This was kind of a last minute deal.
And in all fairness, the treasurer's been trying to get a hold of me, but I've been tied up. I was out of state yesterday, back in the office today, and my first look at this was late this afternoon. So in all fairness to her, she tried to get me to look at it, and I've just been jammed up.
All right, let's go ahead and table it for the time being so we can review it. I've got,
We need to take a,
yeah,
Better get a motion.
motion,
I'll make a motion to table this.
second, or can I get a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. I've got two ordinances, one that the judge presented with their distribution of sales tax, and then Justice Reed has brought one in too.
I've got one to add to the backside of the judge's distribution there.
Okay,
That I need to hand out after you discuss that.
And I've got a legal explanation how and why on the judge's distribution and how it's gonna tie in with this.
okay,
You want me to hand it out?
yeah, that'd be fine.
Now, this goes after the judge.
After the judge,
After the judge.
Kind of on the floor. At least there's a question. So that was finished. What did I do? So can you touch those things?
read these in simultaneous.
You need to pass the judges first. And because that's gonna be a direct line with what I've got.
And we'll start with this one that you just handed out. Being acted, ordinance 2025, being acted by the Quorum Court of Marion County, Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled an appropriation ordinance amending the percentage breakdown of Marion County's 1% countywide sales tax and use tax. The distribution of sales tax funds listed, in ordinance 2024-2 are hereby amended and read as followed. I actually missed a paragraph, so I need to back it up. Whereas it deems necessary to reassign a percentage of sales tax monies in the following manner, beginning with monies received in January 1st, 2025. And then we'll come to the distribution of the sales tax funds listed in ordinance 2024-2 are hereby amended to read as follows. 42%, to county road, 32% to law enforcement, 15%, to transfer station, 11%, to rural fire department, totaling 100%.
What, can I speak? Can I say something? What has happened, the sheriff's office is taken back over 911. You know, we've got 911 in the sheriff's office. We take care of the dispatch. In order to fund that, the judge had to give up 5 cents of his 47 cents or whatever he had at one time. What it was.
Yeah, there was, ordinance 2021-3 was taking 5% of the road fund and transferring it, into 3024 dispatch.
And without going into a lot of details and backdooring the money, this money will be transferred, that 5 cents will go to the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office will then in turn forward it on to 911 dispatch. The auditor, Chris Wright, had made a comment today that that was the best way to handle it. Just to receipt it into the sheriff's office. Once it's there, since 911 is part of our budget now, or it's going to be within our umbrella, we can then funnel the money over and pay for it. So that's the reason this is it's contingent on the distribution of the 5% where the judge put out there. Because we'll need that to maintain the road.
Chairman, which ordinance are you on? Is it the sheriff's ordinance or the judge's ordinance?
I've started with the judge's ordinance.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm thinking this here for a second. Can I go ahead and get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
Of course, obviously you have a second ordinance submitted by me with a different distribution, similar numbers, not too terribly bad, too terribly different. But I would like to express myself as a sitting justice of the peace. When I sponsor an ordinance, it's different when the judge sends something out. The quorum court makes decisions, not the judge. Okay, so I would hope that you would consider the ordinance I wrote, with a little bit higher priority. That's an editorial. Thank you.
Any discussion?
Which are,
Did you already give it to him?
they got, oh, okay.
Got any extra?
Sir,
You have any extra?
You bring an extra one? Did you bring an extra one?
no, I did not.
Oh, that's fine.
I can only count to 5.
I understand.
You can look at my blog.
Can you guys read the percentages? Or-
You actually have an extra one. Yeah, he does have an extra one. Shipment's not here. All right.
So this three years doesn't take in the 5% they're talking about, yours isn't. That 5% is not a factor, it's on first.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Chairman, I've got a lot of hot air that's going.
Floor's open.
Thank you, sir. So one of the problems that arose by looking at transferring 911 into the sheriff's department is part of the funding percentages. The judge had worked out with the fire departments, we're going to take X percentage out of the money you're getting in the budget, and we're going to use that for 911, okay? The problem is, and the auditors picked this up, is there's not a provision under that law for the division of the sales tax for it to go to 911 because it doesn't fit in any one of those categories, okay? So the thought process was, we'll move into the sheriff's office, we'll put that percentage in there, but we're still gonna need some additional funding on the backside, okay? The problem with that was, you can't do it that way. That's against the law, right? My recommendation to the sheriff and to the judge is, and we're gonna have to figure out the coding numbers because we got PSAP money, 911 money, other things along those lines, separate, apart from this percentage, that we're gonna have to work out. But basically, if you look in the county budget manual under 3020 for the E911 stuff, We're just gonna take that entire budget, personnel, and everything, we're gonna pull it out of the county judge's section, and we're gonna put it into the sheriff's section, okay? With that being said, that 32%, we can use the full amount for dispatch. So far, so good? We're gonna need an additional county ordinance, and the ordinance that's presented, we may have to rework. You know, as Justice Reed likes, we may have to do some interlineations. But we'll need to rework that to work out the coding numbers. And it's gonna take a little work with the treasurer and staff to get all that worked out. But then, the funding would not be an issue. However, keep in mind that 911 has always gone into the red, and we've had to transfer a certain amount of money from county general to supplement 911. My recommendation, as far as moving that entire thing in its own separate budget item within the sheriff's office, I know Ms. Jackie's gonna kill me for saying that, but it makes it the cleanest way to track those funds. So when we have to pull in additional money for personal services and stuff to fund it, it's gonna be the easiest way, transparency-wise, so that the auditor's happy. We've got a clear division on the sales tax. We've got a clear division on the 911 funds. And basically, the entire operation is gonna be moved to the sheriff. If that makes sense.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So like if we get a receipt in for PSAP, we would receipt it into 1800, but use the revenue code
For
for
that,
that particular thing. So, but it would just go into 1800 instead of.
right, but it's gonna, the revenue code that's gonna use, and that's where we're gonna have to work a little bit, or you.
911 has their own separate set of revenue codes, so
Okay.
it'll be easy to track that separately from the sheriff's office.
We just wanna make sure it stays within that budget item, and just doesn't wind up generally in 1800.
Well, one is that.
That's comptroller.
That's,
Now, real money wise, that's gonna get pulled it's gonna all get put together in the fund,
right,
but it can't be separated out. But
Are we talking like 1800-0501 instead of 0400?
whatever the revenue code is, yeah.
Similar.
Well, yeah, that's the office code. So on your end, you would use the 0501 for 911, and then the 0400 for law enforcement. And then on the revenue side, we would have the law enforcement codes that we use for you guys, and then we have our 911 codes. Like, we'll have completely different codes that you guys will have for us to.
I need two separate budgets though, because I can't,
They have to be two separate budgets. So in your budget book, 911 is gonna be a separate budget in the budget book. It's gonna be an entirely separate item. Unfortunately, it's gonna add an additional budget for you to keep track of.
well, I'm kind of used to that by now. So like 3018 is its own budget, but it's not in the sheriff's department. You know what I'm saying? It's not coming to 1800. So that's what I'm.
We're gonna have to keep this in. The 3018 doesn't get any of the sales tax money.
It gets its own.
It gets the 25% quarter.
It's its own though.
Yeah,
It's not part of that.
It's not part of that.
You're right.
So that money that's coming in from the percentage in that ordinance, that's why 911 is gonna have to be plugged in to suck off that 5% or 32% or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just looking at this, I think that second, like 0500 versus 0501 versus 0400 is gonna be my.
We're just gonna have to come up with the revenue codes and the expenditure codes within its new budget. Okay?
I mean, it's just that the real money is gonna be.
Because right now, in the 911 budget that exists under the county judge, is any of that money coming from PSAP?
Yes, there is money that goes into their
That's
funds of
what I'm worried
It comes
about.
quarterly, and then we have an annual deposit that comes in January.
Okay, so that's the only logistics that we're gonna have to figure out, but we can do that under 1800.
And not lose a piece of that money, because that's the thing the auditor warned me about was you do not want to lose that piece of.
Right, and that's where it's just gonna take a little work before this becomes final.
So you're still keeping the 3020 or doing away with it?
I don't know yet, I have to dive in more.
Okay.
I got this at
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock today.
It was the bane of my existence this afternoon, I can tell you.
I'm glad you didn't have a gun and I wasn't near you. But it's entirely doable. It's just gonna take a little more work to get this hashed out.
Just a historical note that you guys may not be aware of, and probably are. The four 1800 series, 1800, 1801, 2, and 3, were established by referendum. Okay, the voters said, take this amount of money out and the 1% sales tax, and court, you distribute it, but you distribute it among these four groups. 911 wasn't in it. So there was no funding from the referendum for 911. So the idea of moving 911 over to law enforcement eases the burden in terms of the referendum. Now, as far as the judge's ordinance, you really can't do that, because you have an ordinance now that you have to either repeal or amend. What is it, 3020? I've got it written down in my notes, for the one that transfers from 1803 to 3020.
It's 2021-3. That was.
Dash 21-3 would have to be repealed
I think it says that in the
amended.
judge's ordinance.
So,
It says that, it's like Article 3 or something in the judge.
Matt,
I believe it says that on the judge's paperwork.
It's Article
it
2.
says it on,
Article 2.
It says it's repealing that.
No, it's, all ordinances in conflict with this ordinance are hereby superseded and held for naught, including ordinance 2021-3.
Okay.
Is that right, John, how I said that?
I like it worded a little bit.
okay.
Can I ask a question? See, 911 was part of the sheriff's department
Originally,
originally,
yes.
and then it came back.
How did it get separated from the sheriff's
That's what I'm trying to wrap my head.
I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around this. Why did it always be part of the sheriff's department?
had more money.
At one time, the county judge and the county sheriff were at odds. The former judge said, okay, I'm gonna take Cleveland and I'm gonna take care of the department. And in addition to that, I'm gonna take 5 cents of your 1 cent sales tax. I hope that's about right. That may not, that's just about right. So it was taken some 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, and just not given back. But
Now you have it back, and now you need that 5 cents back again.
yes, but the 5 cents, there won't, it's coming back, but it will be moved over so that we can help pay for the 911.
Thank you, I just wanted
Yeah,
to
the
clarify that.
key word there is help.
Help. It doesn't fund 911.
The original ordinance back in 2021, I have often questioned if it was a typo, because they started taking it out of 1801. So they were taking it out of the road, taking 5% from the road, transferring it to the sales tax fire departments, and then transferring it to 3020. And so I've been questioning if that was supposed to say 1800 the whole time, and it was typoed to 1801, and that's why it's been coming out of the road, which is why this is all getting fixed now.
Okay, from a legislative audit standpoint, if the auditors was to come in here, do we need to have all the bookkeeping cleaned up?
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah.
Naturally, I would think before we even move forward.
No. This is going to fix.
It's gonna fix.
It's gonna fix it.
It's gonna fix the bookkeeping.
You had me confused with all the
No,
different.
with the current way it's being done, we got a problem.
Yes.
And like I said, I just was presented to me 1 o'clock today. I don't have all the answers, but the general answer that I can give that I know will fix it. We're gonna move dispatch into the sheriff's office. They're gonna become sheriff's department employees, management, control, everything. And the budget stuff, Jackie, the treasurer, Cheyenne, can tackle, and I'll do my 2 cents worth of it.
We did talk to Chris Wright, who is our legislative auditor. We talked to him yesterday and today, and he recommended us receiving the 5 cents over. And then once we get it within our budget, we can move it over to 911 because it's part of our department now. Now, before you couldn't do it because they weren't part of it. But now then that we're gonna have it, we can take the 5 cents in. Once it's settled, then we can move that over into the 30-20 budget. So we've got a separate budget to run that department. Having a separate budget allows us to have the PSAP money come in, and it comes through. It's another form of money that comes in from, some type of tax.
Another revenue stream.
I do have a question. Currently, both departments have shortfalls. And my question was, is it not easier to just go ahead and give the percentage to the sheriff's office and lessen our shortfall and increase the shortfall on the dispatch side?
You can, it's just robbing Peter to pay Paul. Yeah, absolutely, you can do that.
And it just seems to me that's the easier,
You could.
Certainly clearer to,
it just means you guys have to, okay, switch that over. We'll have less of a shortfall
Right.
going forward. It won't be as
It's still gonna have to be a separate budget, because that separate budget is where the PSAP money and stuff has to go into.
So it can still say 30-20 and nothing really changed except the shortfall.
Well, the revenue projections would have to be lower on 30-20 because, I accounted for the 5% transfer.
Right, but that would just equate to the shortfall.
Yeah, it'd just be more added on this.
Right.
But depending on what those revenue projections are, Jackie, we might have to amend the budget.
I mean, are we talking $45,000?
Usually we're averaging about 3,000, a little over 3,000 a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a lot of money to do.
We can do it that way, that's perfectly acceptable, perfectly fine.
That was okay with the auditor.
No, we can do that.
So then we would just pass this and then,
Pass
It
this
would
and
just decrease our shortage from the county.
right. But we still need to move the entire 911 budget as a separate budget under you all.
You're gonna have to show me that trick, but I'll go along with it.
Page graph.
Okay, I'd like to hear Justice read one more time, and then I'm gonna take this to vote.
I like Jackie's idea, but I would recommend holding that over to, 2026 budget period. That way, when you do the 26 budget, you can clean up all of that.
Then how do we get in trouble with the auditor right now?
Well, you can still, I'm talking about Jackie's idea of, don't just leave 5% with the sheriff and leave a higher deficit with 911.
Well, no, if she, what she's saying is the whole 5% would go to the sheriff.
Yeah.
Then they can just do an internal transfer to fund 911.
Well, I thought you said the 5% goes to the sheriff, which would decrease his,
Yeah, that is what I said.
his,
shortfall.
shortfall. And then all of 911 would come out of,
But think of it this way, Justice, all the money's gonna go into one pot under them. It's just gonna be an accounting thing for her to fix that.
but it changes the percentages of distribution. No,
No.
if you pass this ordinance, then the county road, well, 5% of law enforcement would go to 911.
No, 5% of law enforcement is gonna go to law enforcement. They're then gonna handle the internal funding of 911.
But nonetheless, the sheriff loses 5% of sales tax distribution because he's got to fund 911. Just like the judge lost 5%,
But then they're adding it in there.
That was
32%.
my question. Is this 5% that the sheriff's ordinance, is that on top of the 32%? Or is that included in?
John hasn't seen what we wrote that ordinance. He has not seen that ordinance that we wrote up, because we were transferring from 1,800 to 30-20 is how we wrote it up.
Okay.
I don't know if that's how it doesn't sound like John's saying the exact same thing.
I haven't seen what's been submitted to you all.
Well, that moves law enforcement to
I was-
27%.
I was-
That's where we're at.
That's what I was about to say, is they took 3% from road and 3% from transportation. They gave 1% to the fire departments, and then that 5% they added on top of law enforcement so that they would be able to fund 911. So after that 5% is gone, they're still getting the same
We need.
27.
We're at 27 right now.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
at 7% right
So the way this ordinance is that the judge submitted is increasing their 27 to 32. So this will accomplish what we needed to accomplish. This will just go all into the 1,800. Then dispatch will be under a different section within the budget, 3020. If there's any shortfalls, they'll have to pull it out of here internally. If that makes sense.
It does.
Now, they're still gonna have to come back before the quorum court if it exceeds the total shortfall for the year. And you already know 911's gonna have a shortfall that they have every year, and we have to transfer that money. That's an easy fix.
Right now, they have 174,000.
It's 177,000 shortfall right now.
And we have quite a bit more.
But this would be a good fix now to get the auditor and stuff squared away.
I can't support 27% for the sheriff.
That's what they're getting now.
That's where we are.
No, in my ordinance, I increased it consistent with roads. So the sheriff has to gain something out of sales tax distribution.
He's redone another ordinance.
There's another ordinance.
There's another ordinance there.
What you're looking at is the judge's ordinance. I tax solid waste to support the sheriff.
I'll tell you right now, that's between you and the judge.
So,
That's between you and the judge.
well, no, it's not. It's the court's decision. Judge doesn't have a play in that. He may have an opinion, but he doesn't have a vote.
I don't disagree, but that's between you and the judge.
Between quorum court and the judge, not me.
Well, I'm talking to quorum court, that's between quorum court and judge, that's up to y'all.
Yeah.
I could care less. All I'm saying is, the fix is to transfer additional money to 1,800, whatever, I don't care if it's, to be honest with you, sheriff would probably be happy with 38%. I know if I was sheriff, I would be. But no matter what, dispatch just needs to be moved over.
Well, yeah, I agree with that, but
Yeah.
I can't support anything that doesn't give law enforcement a better shot at sales tax.
With that being said then, you've got two ordinances, y'all are gonna have to decide which one to send to the quorum court.
Agreed.
I'm just understanding. Did you bring more than one copy of your proposal?
Yeah, I
It's
did.
past the distribution ordinance, we just need another ordinance transferring the budget and the regular.
That's it.
They shared it.
And then once you're like 30, 0 for 3 years.
Well, that higher.
You got shares.
Because we're gonna have to. Oh, yeah, it's used the revenue code from judge to sheriff.
Well, it would be, yeah, it's fine. We would have to receive it, we would have to receive it, because that money is 1,800. Is what I mean, it's like you would have to, I mean, which it's easy to track, you know, we have, I'm so aware that Tom is doing ICU. Everything's being tracked. And it's like a message right now. I don't know, just it's a list of dollars.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, on our side, not budget side, I just worry about all of that. Well, I just want to add the one thing.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead. And, go ahead and get our vote and set it. Yes.
The chair's vote.
That's what it is, man. The 10%.
Which, are we voting on the judges and the one that the sheriff brought?
The judges
That's
and
the
the
one
one-
we're voting on right now,
Yes.
whether to pass that, and then we're gonna do justice for
Can I make a comment? Whichever the judges or Mr. Justice Reeves that you go with, but we gotta do ours after that. It's gotta be, you know, if the judge or Justice Reeves is ordinance 05, ours needs to be ordinance 06 or 7 after you pass the first one. You can't pass mine and then go past theirs. It's a sequence of events for it.
Here's how to piggyback off of, or one way or the other.
The current sheriff, my recommendation is right now, is they can approve the concept of the ordinance, but we need to reword your ordinance.
Okay.
Okay?
You don't like the way I wrote that?
If the way it's
Ladies, we're up today.
okay, the way it's currently written, there will be a double homicide tonight. And I know who's gonna commit it. And the double homicide, they're gonna be looking for a new sheriff and a new county attorney.
Oh, we need to fix it.
It's entirely fixable, but as long as they approve the concept of the ordinance, between now and the formal court meeting, we can flush out that language. We can fix that before the formal court meeting, as long as the budget committee understands what we're doing.
Okay.
I was just thinking that if we pass the distribution percentages, we'll need to have that ordinance, I mean, as far as the 18, 30, 20, whatever we decide. That way, otherwise I still have to go by the old ordinance.
No, and both of these are gonna have to, because they're not gonna pass tonight, they'll pass the formal court meeting.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is the sheriff's one, adopt in concept, and then we'll fix the wording
Fix it.
between now and the formal court meeting.
I was just thinking of when I go to do the distribution next month of the 5%.
No,
Okay.
no, this will happen, whichever one's passed, the sheriff's ordinance will go along with it. With the conceptual idea that the entire former court knows, we are moving 911 from the county to the sheriff, and we're gonna fund it. And the ordinance will reflect all the appropriate language at that time. The only thing I think you all need to decide tonight is approve the concept of the sheriff's, but approve which budget number you're gonna go with.
We don't need any double homicides today.
No, we're good. I just want to make sure that I'm learning. Just create a lot of work.
So Greg, just to make sure that I'm clear, you need to go behind.
Yes, sir. Either one of them that you go with, that needs to go behind.
All right, getting back to the judge's ordinance. So I need to get a vote.
Yeah, I cancel out.
Not to belong to the discussion, Chairman, but would it be appropriate to add the language from sheriff's to the distribution ordinance?
No.
Okay, thank you.
No.
That's all. I don't need anybody to say yes, no.
We're ready to vote, is that what you got? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah. I'm ready for vote.
Okay.
All in favor?
Want to clarify what you're voting on?
We're voting on the judge's ordinance being enacted by the Quorum Court of Marion County, Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled, an appropriation ordinance amending the percentage breakdown of Marion County's 1% countywide sales tax and use tax. Whereas it is deemed necessary to reassign the percentage of sales tax monies in the following manner, beginning with the monies received in January 1st, 2025. Article 1, distribution of sales tax funds listed in ordinance 2024-2 are hereby amended to read as follows: 42% county road, 32% law enforcement, 15% transfer station, 11% rural fire department, totaling 100%. Article 2, all ordinances in conflict with this ordinance are hereby superseded and held for naught, including ordinance 2021-3. Article 3, all county employees and elected officials involved herein shall prepare all documentation necessary to effectuate the transfer described herein. I'm ready for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
They will just move it and then vote on what John's got.
All right,
All opposed?
all opposed? So now I'll need to
Present the second.
present his, present Justice Reed. Be it enacted by the Quorum Court of Marion County, State of Arkansas, an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending ordinance 2024-02, percentage breakdown of Marion County 1% countywide sales and use tax. Article 1, distribution of sales and use tax list in ordinance 2024-02 are hereby amended to read as follows. As read, 27% law enforcement fund, 1800. 45% to county roads fund, 1801. 18% to transfer station fund, 1802. 10% to rural fire department fund, 1803. As amended, 38% law enforcement fund, 1800. 42% county roads fund, 1801. 10% to the transfer station fund, 1802. 10% to rural fire department fund, 1803. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, I'll go ahead and take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
No. Now, where's this guy gonna leave me with you on this? Go ahead and,
Point of order.
yes.
You have two ordinances that failed, and because you didn't have your tiebreaker.
Mm-hmm.
You could either decide to table it for another meeting, or you can recommend to send both ordinances to the full quorum court to have them vote on, decide which way they want to go.
I'll prefer to table it to where we can get it resolved in here before it goes to court.
The only issue with that is, keep in mind, we got 911 now under sheriff's control that we're gonna have to do something with funding wise to fix this.
Well, we still have the same distribution, and we still have the 30 to 18, or 33, 30, 20 ordinances.
But we don't have the ordinance fixing our,
But they're not county employees anymore, they're sheriff's department employees. And each month this goes on, more and more money's coming out of something that it shouldn't be coming out of.
Well, there were 300,000 in arrears at the beginning of the year, so.
when we need to take it on board.
I agree. Because if one of us is going next time, we're gonna have the same issue.
Yeah.
So we need more votes.
My recommendation is send them both up to the quorum court and then let the full court hash it out.
Another 2 hours.
Well, that's what we'll do, is we'll send it back to quorum court.
Yeah, and then the judge will be here, everybody will be here,
Everybody's,
represented, number one. The only other thing I ask that you do is you take up the sheriff's, the conceptual idea behind the sheriff's, so that if either one passes, we can move on to the corrected language in the sheriff's ordinance.
we don't have any other business,
I do have an appropriation ordinance,
okay.
and I didn't know if you got it in time. I apologize for that. But I have copies for everyone, and along with a justification page I'd like to give you, and we can talk about that. And my budget justification for this will explain that. I mean, we'll do that first.
Not gonna stay here for the shoot.
No. Okay, you got a copy?
You get a copy.
Oh,
And last but not least.
Yeah.
Still, I share.
Thank God for email. That's my.
That just was not true.
That's all free, right?
Unless free, my grandchildren, free, I have to breathe.
Oh, before I forget, Tommy Johnson is in the hospital. He's in ICU and he did have 9 hours of surgery today. I don't know why or what happened.
Okay.
But that's what he said.
Just goes with it, 2 hours.
He's in Baxter.
Didn't he get, like, he had something hit him in the head?
Something.
That's why he had that iPad.
Yeah, that's right, he did.
I don't remember, like,
The last week or last.
Yeah, he had the iPad. Yeah, I don't remember what the.
I want to say
He
something.
was working cattle
Is that what I thought? It was something to do with cattle and
and
like.
handling the sheep pen
Oh,
right here in Blackie side.
okay. Oh, wow. Lots of prayers for them.
Well, we'll go ahead and finish up this last item of business, and I'll consider this the last meeting for the night. And appropriation ordinance 2025, be it enacted by the Court of Marion County, Arkansas, and ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance amending the annual operating budget for the Office of the Prosecuting Attorney, numbers and compensation ordinance 2024-61, the annual operating budget for calendar year 2025 for Marion County, Arkansas. You can go ahead and read all of it.
No, it's, you get the gist of it. So here's what's transpired. My paralegal had a child 1.5, 2 years ago, so he's a little guy. And he had some health issues and stuff, and as such, she's used all her sick and vacation time. She hasn't. She's on FMLA right now because she just had a baby on the 17th. Since that time, she's had some complications and has had to be hospitalized. And as of this afternoon, it's my understanding they're taking the newborn down to Children's. I don't know what's going on, okay? I've got money in my budget for the next 3 months that she's on FMLA, that she's not gonna get a paycheck. There's 3 months of salary there. You with me? So I could hire someone for that 3 months. At this point in time, I won't know until she comes up towards the end of her FMLA if she's gonna be back. I have no idea. My operations are small. There's only 3 of us. But we do a tremendous amount of work because we cover every law enforcement agency in Marion County, plus federal, plus state police, plus. We handle all felonies. I also handle all misdemeanors within the county. The job that she does, she handles all of district court, misdemeanor court, and coordinates discovery and stuff on my felonies. So I'm gonna have to train someone. I've got to get somebody in there and train them. My problem is that's gonna increase the workload on myself and on my victim witness coordinator, Ruby, until I get this gal up to speed. We're gonna have a backlog. We're gonna have a backlog of work. I thought this through and I talked it over with my boss, David Etheridge. The only way I can think this through is to ask for salary money for the second person through the end of the year. If at the end of the 3 months, Tisha comes back, I have this other person help work through the backlog, because we're gonna have a backlog both on the felony side and misdemeanor side. It's already started because she's out. If Tisha does not come back, then I've got somebody that will be fully trained by the end of the year. And lo and behold, we should be in good shape. The end of the year, I expect we're gonna be in a little better shape, because part of it is I'm gonna be out. I've gotta have some major surgery in the fall. So my thought process is, if I replace this person now and we just budget that money through the calendar year, I will know whether or not Tisha's gonna come back or she's not. If Tisha doesn't come back, I'm not gonna use that extra money or hire another person. See what I'm saying? That money would just be swept right back into whatever funding source you decide to fund it from. We've had a lot of discussions about the tribal consistency money. We have other funds. We got general fund, but basically you see that it's a increase of $38,000, and that encompasses all the personal services, the insurance, taxes, and I base that amount upon Tisha's salary, depending upon the qualifications of the new person. I'm not gonna start them at what Tisha makes now. I think she's up like at $15.51. This person, I've got it in my budget to start anywhere from $13.25 to $15 an hour. Because of the qualifications for paralegal, I would anticipate this person would be starting somewhere in the range of $14.50 to $15 an hour. So I'm between a rock and a hard place. And the thing about it is, I knew she was gonna be out pregnancy-wise. We thought we'd be able to handle it and she could do a little bit, to assist us. That's out the window now. With her being hospitalized and now her child going down with children's, I'm stuck and I gotta have help. Now, a few years ago, and this is right before I came on, we were in a similar situation, and one of our JPs actually came in and answered the phones, and that was Claudia Brigham. She helped hold down the fort, and Claudia learned that I gotta have two people in the office, and she fought for us to make sure we had two people. So I'm here, hat in hand, saying, I need help, and unfortunately, it's beyond my control. And that's why I put in my justification letter to you all. I have several different plans in place. A lot of it's gonna depend upon whether she comes back or not. And that's where I'm at. The big question, I guess, is if you approve this, where do you want the money to come from? And that's why I didn't put a specific fund, because there are other fund sources for this amount of money that it could draw upon. And this would be a one-time deal, if, and I'm just saying if, I was asked for additional people in the future, the only way I'm gonna come to you and ask for that is if I've got a funding mechanism in my house to do that. I'm not gonna add additional personnel that I can't fund. This is just a temporary, you see what I'm saying? This is a temporary thing through the end of the year to get me one way or another, and get me back on track.
So if the current one doesn't come back, this one works out, it stays full-time and just goes on, nothing happened.
Like nothing happened. And I'm not gonna add an additional person. That money would just go back into whatever funding source you took it out of.
So basically in 3 months, we will know one way or the other, basically whether.
If she does come back, then I'm gonna keep that person through the end of the year, because since I know I'm probably gonna be out for anywhere from, I'll probably be out for a month. I've gotta have knee replacement surgery, so I know I'm gonna be out sometime this fall. They're gonna need someone to help carry the ball in my absence.
So if we go ahead and vote on this, we've got an idea of what fund we're gonna target, is that correct? To an extent,
To an extent, the two that pop off the top of my head, and one of them I know you don't want to spend money out of, but one of the funds, is the tribal consistency. That's, for lack of a better word, one-time money. The other is general, and come out of there. I think you have some other funds that exist that you could potentially take that out of.
So if we were to pass this tonight, if we saw a need to pull out another fund, we can amend this.
Well, it doesn't say what fund this is gonna come out of.
So we can determine that after the fact.
Yeah, at the full court, if you pass this, say we need to approve it, then I'm gonna get the ladies behind me and I'm gonna say, okay, ladies, what's the biggest bank account you got?
I would recommend, rather than just define a funding source, give the court options.
The top two right now would be travel consistency in general. For
The
the
county general can afford it, and I would support that, but if there's other options, like a bake sale,
Well, there's probably some other funds, I don't know if you all fully researched, but the court has put limitations on it. For example, we have a building improvement fund that's probably got, what, $250,000 in it? So there's other places there's money, but for the amount of money we're talking about, where we're currently sitting on general revenue funds,
County buildings
Y'all
have
have a copy.
$130,000.
is that what they're
my recommendation is if the committee passes it without a funding source defined, when it gets to court, have some funding sources recommended.
And I'll have those answers for you when it goes to the court, and I'll have recommendations from my discussions with county staff, what would probably be the best for the county as far as that funding source.
So we don't need to determine that tonight.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think whether or not, tonight's just that you would approve this, sponsor it, move it on if you decide that's what I need. If you want me to work at a deficit, I can do that. There may be another homicide once I call Ruby. Well, you can only kill me once.
Okay, I've lost track. Did I get a motion?
I'll make a motion.
All right,
I'll second it.
okay. We've already had our discussion. Can I go ahead and take a vote? Aye. Opposed? Wesley? All right, if we have no other business, I'll go ahead and, make a motion to adjourn. Second. Thank you for letting me have input. Thank you to everybody for your time. Only the.